but it can only deal with single facts one at a time. You may think that you can listen to the radio and read a book at the same time. In practice, however, your attention is rapidly shifting back and forth between the book and the radio, causing you to neither hear the entire radio program nor to remember the contents of the book. What this means is that, as obvious as it may sound, to register new information strongly in your long-term memory requires that you focus your full attention on it. Just as the camera will take a poor picture if the lens is not focused properly, your memory will be vague and unreliable if your senses are not totally focused on the learning task while it's going on. What we're really talking about is concentration. It's the most important single quality for success in our society today. If you have every other attribute and ability, including clear goals, plans, and well-organized schedules, you will still not be successful if you cannot concentrate single-mindedly on one thing at a time and stay with it until it's complete. On the other hand, if you lack many of the other blessings of modern society, but you have developed yourself to the point where you can concentrate at will on what you consider to be the most important item at the moment, then your success is virtually guaranteed. Concentration is simply a habit. It takes time to develop, but the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. The fact is that no one concentrates on a subject without distraction for more than a minute or so. This is normal and natural. But the people who learn to concentrate and who can therefore learn well are simply those who have practiced bringing their minds back to the subject each time it wanders. It's in the nature of your mind to wander, so when you begin developing the habit of concentration, it will feel a little bit unnatural. Your subconscious mind may even play tricks on you by giving you all kinds of phony reasons why concentration is neither necessary nor desirable. But you must ignore these blandishments. They're simply ways to help you let yourself off the hook of developing the critical habit you need for lifelong success. If you want to demonstrate to yourself how poor your level of concentration is, here's an exercise that is quite revealing. Take your wristwatch and focus on it for 30 seconds without diversion or distraction to any other thought. Use all your mental strength to keep your mind solely on the watch and on the moving second hand. You will find to your amazement that you cannot do it. No matter how hard you try, your mind will wander. No matter how often you come back to it, you will not be able to keep your attention focused on the watch for 30 seconds without diversion or distraction. You will finally give up in frustration. In fact, it's been said that if you could develop your concentration to the point where you could focus on your watch face for 2 solid minutes without your mind wandering, you could accomplish almost anything you could want in life. Earlier in this course, I mentioned that 3 of the most important keys to learning and memory are desire, motivation, and relevance. You must intensely desire to develop a better memory. You must be motivated to develop a better memory by thinking of what's in it for you. And you must feel that memorization techniques are relevant to a specific part of your work or personal life. So before you begin learning the following techniques, set some memory goals for yourself. Decide in what areas you want your memory to improve, and think of how helpful it would be for you to have an excellent memory in certain circumstances. Visualize yourself with an outstanding memory for facts, figures, information and details, or foreign language words in a particular situation. The more intensely you desire to improve your memory, the easier it will be for you to actually associate and remember memorization techniques. Here are 2 affirmations you can use that are very helpful. First, say to yourself, I concentrate easily and well on new material. Repeat this several times, especially when you find your mind wandering. I concentrate easily and well on new material. The second affirmation is for you to continually say to yourself, I learn easily and well. Or, I easily learn anything I put my mind to. When you repeat these affirmations, I concentrate easily and well, I learn easily and well, and I easily learn anything I put my mind to, you will be amazed at how your subconscious mind will respond by enabling you to concentrate better and better and longer as time passes. Throughout your life, there are things that you have experienced only once and remembered indefinitely. These are times when you have been intensely aware of both yourself and the experience simultaneously, almost as if you were observing the situation happening to you from outside of yourself. In fact, whenever you can step back from yourself and observe what is happening as though you were a third party, your likelihood of remembering that event is greatly increased. This is because the entire situation is far more vivid and clear than the normal stream of experiences that make up your daily existence. These high points of memory are almost invariably points of high emotionality as well. For example, you could get in your car and drive all the way to work and not remember a single part of the trip. But if an accident occurred in front of you suddenly, or you were cut off in traffic and had to slam on your brakes to stop from crashing into the other car, or even if you heard something really important on the radio, you would remember those points with tremendous clarity when you got to work, and you could recall them in detail. I can remember sitting in a history class at about 1:30 in the afternoon on November 22nd, 1963, when the announcement came over the loudspeaker that President John F. Kennedy had been assassinated in Dallas. Today, more than 30 years later, I can still see all the details of the class, the teacher at the front of the class and the students around me. I can see the blackboard, the bookcases, and the window with the sun coming in. The intensity of the moment created a Polaroid picture of that time and place that I will never forget. Almost everyone who was living at that time had a similar experience. You've had many such experiences over the course of your lifetime. These are the moments that live in your memory with the same vividness and intensity as if they had happened only a short time ago. And here's the point. What if you could develop your memory so that it was so acute that you could have that same capacity for recollection for any idea or piece of information that you wanted to remember? Well, people with excellent memories are those who have developed the capacity to do exactly that. Here are a series of ways to develop a super memory by training yourself to concentrate and by learning a series of associations and connections among data and information. The first memory technique is how to remember names and match them to faces. The reason why most people find it difficult to remember names is that people's names rarely have any direct association with their faces. It's easier to remember names if Mr. Baker bakes bread or if Mr. Carpenter makes furniture. It's more difficult when there doesn't seem to be any connection between who the person is, what the person does, and their actual name. The secret to remembering names is to create a strong visual association between the name and the face. Here's how you remember names faster and easier. Start by expecting to remember. Say to yourself, I remember names easily and well. I will remember this person's name. These words, repeated emphatically, are accepted by your subconscious mind as a command, and your subconscious mind is trained to obey your commands. Look closely at the new person. Face them directly. Lean slightly forward and pay attention to them, as if he or she were the only person in the room. Look at his or her hair closely. Remember, it's not just plain hair. It's either long or short. It's straight or curly, black, blonde, brown, gray, or something else. Be sensitive to the hair, as if a professional hairdresser had asked you to observe and report back. Look closely at the eyebrows of the person. They are not just strips of hair above the eyes. They are arched or thin. They are either carefully manicured or messy. Look at the person's eyes carefully. Observe their color, as well as whether or not they are large or small, close or wide set. Look at his or her nose. Is it small or large? Is it long or short? Is it narrow or wide, straight or curved? Finally, look at his or her face. Is it round, oval, or square? When you really look at a person rather than just glance at them, you will see an incredible variation in detail. And remember, the first few times you do this, you'll find it difficult. But be patient with yourself. Learning anything worthwhile requires practice. Pretty soon, you'll become an expert on faces. By looking at the hair, the eyebrows, the eyes, the nose, and the face, as well as perhaps the body and other distinguishing features, you will have registered the person strongly. The next step in remembering names is for you to create an association between the visual appearance of the face and the name of the person. Here's how you do it. Repeat the person's name right away and explain why you were doing this. Explain that you would like to remember the person's name and that you consider people's names to be very important. If it makes sense, ask the person to spell their name for you. People are very emotionally attached to their names, and they will always be willing to spell their names for you and repeat them if you ask. If the name is unusual and you have the time, ask them for the origin of their name. Most people have spent a good deal of time studying the background of their names, and they very much enjoy explaining how their name originally developed and where it came from. This is a great way to create a stronger association between the person and the name. Look for a visual link between the person's face and their name. Look for something that associates the physical characteristics of their face with their name. If possible, exaggerate the characteristics of the person's face in your own mind, like cartoonists do. This makes them even more memorable. Ask yourself, who else do I know with the same name? Try to picture the two people interacting in some way. If this person's name is Henry, imagine introducing someone else you also know named Henry to this person. Repeat the person's name several times to yourself quickly. Imagine the person's name is Harold. When you meet the person and are shaking hands, look closely at the person's face and repeat to yourself the words, Harold, 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 Harold. You need to repeat a word about 6 times in order to remember it. Finally, visualize the person's name stamped on their forehead. Actually make an effort to see the words written out in block letters across their forehead. When you say goodbye to the person, repeat the name again. And make a decision to recall that name when you meet the person again. You may have thought that there was a trick to remembering names, but this simply isn't true. Remember the mental groove that we have talked about in previous sessions. When you first decide to begin remembering people's names, you will find it fairly difficult. This is normal. But as you concentrate and practice on remembering more and more names, you will find that it becomes easier and easier. And the more names you remember, the more names you can remember. It's like touch typing. The more you practice, the faster you become, the more words you can produce. I have friends who are professional speakers who decided to get into the area of teaching memory. They read the books, listened to the tapes, and took the courses. Now they can meet and greet 100 people at the beginning of a seminar and remember their names for the rest of the seminar, even if they move around. It's not a feat of brain power, it's simply a matter of practice. And you can do it too. The secret of success in remembering names is very simple. Learn the skill and make an effort to apply it. It's no different than playing football or riding a bike. You can do it if you make the effort. The skill in remembering names is to first of all really concentrate hard on the face, and second to find a way to associate or link the name with the face. The real reason you forget names is because you hardly ever try to remember them. You glance at the person, hear the name in your short-term memory, but you make no real effort to move it over into your long-term memory. It's not that you forget the name, it's just that it never entered into your long-term memory in the first place. Remember, in order to transfer information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory, to drive those sheep out of the holding pen, you need to activate your various senses and bring them to bear on the information you want to retain. Here's another technique to remember your personal identity number, your PIN number, or any other number for that matter. Say your number is 4285. Simply invent a memorable phrase or sentence that uses a 4-letter, a 2-letter, an 8-letter, and a 5-letter word. 4285. Memorize the phrase and you can always work out the number. Words are easier to remember than numbers because they mean something. Your phrase of 4 words may be, grab my invested money. The word grab has 4 letters. The word my has 2 letters. The word invested has 8 letters. The word money has 5 letters. Grab my invested money is the same as 4285. You can use the same formula for remembering dates, birthdays, formulas, and anything numerical. Just create a simple sentence made up of words containing the same number of letters as the numbers you want to recall. Now, how do you remember where you put your car keys? This is quite simple using some of the principles you've just learned. First of all, set them down deliberately. Then, notice exactly in what shape they are lying, what surface they are on, and what they are lying against or near. Imagine you were going to paint a picture of your car keys. Then, step back and blink your eyes as if you were photographing your car keys. This whole process takes between 5 and 10 seconds. As a result of taking a mental snapshot of your car keys and their location, you will remember where they are whenever you want to. You have now switched their location from your short-term memory into your long-term memory, and the location is available for immediate recall. Developing a good memory is easy when you know how. It is simply a matter of concentrating and then creating as many associations as possible, especially visual associations with the new material. How do you remember something that you have forgotten? The answer is to use the power of association. Retrace in your mind what led up to and what followed the forgotten event, name, fact, or article. What were you doing when the event occurred? What were you thinking, feeling, or saying? What were your physical surroundings? Try to bring the whole situation alive again in your memory. Think of it like a hole into which the forgotten item has disappeared. You are only interested in examining the surroundings of that hole in great detail. When you have all the associations, say to yourself positively, as a command to your subconscious mind, I shall soon remember this in complete detail. Then, turn it over to your subconscious mind and get yourself thinking elsewhere. In no time at all, the answer will emerge. Sometimes it's helpful to go through the alphabet letter by letter. Often you will get a strong feeling for which letter of the alphabet the forgotten item begins with. This triggers the memory as well. If you're ever trying to remember someone's name, use this alphabet technique. It's amazing how quickly it triggers the memory of the entire name. Here are 17 memory techniques and principles, some of which we have touched upon in earlier sessions. They are a mental fitness program, like a physical fitness program that you might take at a health club. They require that you work out with a whole series of mental muscles in a variety of different ways to achieve a well-balanced ability to remember any subject or type of information you encounter. First, make a decision to remember. The more absolutely determined you are to remember a particular fact or event, the better your memory will be. When you clearly decide in your conscious mind that you're going to remember something easily and well, your subconscious mind gradually begins to switch on, like turning on different lights in a room, until your memory starts to work better and better. By the way, the reason why witnesses of an automobile accident are so unreliable is that they never intended to remember the scene when it occurred. On the other hand, when you're determined to absorb the very most out of a situation when it takes place, you'll be amazed at how well your mind works. Second, take regular breaks. The effect of taking frequent breaks is that it keeps your recall level much higher because you have lots of beginnings and endings where you tend to remember the most. Third, review what you have learned on a regular basis in the days and months that follow. You can often review key parts of what you are learning in spare time that would otherwise be wasted. For example, while you're waiting for a bus, sitting in traffic, waiting for an appointment, or while you're doing something that doesn't require a lot of concentration. Each review should take only a very short time, say 3 to 4 minutes, and each review should only be of the notes you took or the highlighted sections, but never the entire book. Only go back to the original book if you want to get clear on something. A regular pattern of review can lead to very substantial improvements in your remembering. In fact, studies have shown that instead of forgetting 70% of the material after 24 hours, you can remember 80% or more after 6 months with a simple sequence of review. This sequence consists of 6 steps. First, learn the material. Second, review the material briefly after an hour. Third, review it once more after a day. Fourth, review it again after 1 week. Fifth, review it again after 1 month. And sixth, review it again after 6 months. This entire review process will only take about 30 minutes over a period of 6 months, but it will triple your memory efficiency. Remember, if it's worth learning in the first place, it's worth reviewing a few times so that you retain it permanently. The fourth memory technique is for you to deliberately create multisensory memories. You know that you have a separate memory for what you see, what you hear, and what you do. Multisensory experiences help you to form longer-lasting memories. When you want to remember, it's smart for you to do everything possible to assure that you have a visual, auditory, and physical experience in your learning. By making notes or a learning map as you listen to a talk, you trigger all 3 senses. You listen, which triggers your auditory sense. You make the notes or a learning map, which triggers your physical sense. And you see what you have written or drawn, which triggers your visual sense. Another way to create a multisensory memory is to watch as someone else demonstrates the process, which triggers your visual sense, say out loud or repeat the steps in the process, which activates your auditory sense, and then walk through or act out the steps in the process yourself, which uses your physical sense. The fifth memory technique is to make your visual images interact. Visual memory is normally the strongest. If you can create not only a visual image of the things you are learning, but then make them link together in some way, you'll have a powerful memory aid. Try to picture the image and the feel or sound of the new subject. Make this as active and as interactive as possible. You remember things better when they involve movement of some kind. For example, imagine a horse standing still. Now, imagine that same horse galloping across a pasture. Which of the two creates the stronger image in your mind? It's obvious the galloping horse is far more vivid because movement adds memorability to an event. Move the image forward or backward in your mind. Make things dance together or stand on top of or below or inside one another. You can even add temperature by imagining things as hot or cold. Make it memorable by making it move. You also remember things better when they involve humor or strangeness. Funny things are well remembered, as are unusual and even vulgar things. If you can create a strange visual picture or image of an event or series of events, you will find it much easier to recall the entire event at a later time. And the stranger and more colorful the images, the better your memory will be. Color is another way to help you remember things better. Be sure to add color and brightness to your mental pictures. Close your eyes and picture a screen in your mind. See the event on your screen, fully colored, bright, active, and funny if possible. It'll be very hard for you not to remember that later on. Detail and movement are the keys to a vivid and memorable image. Use of imagery for learning and remembering are so powerful that you can apply them to learning any subject or taking any exam. The sixth memory technique enables you to improve your spelling instantly. To remember the spelling of a particular word, simply create a multisensory memory of that word in order to firmly establish it in your long-term memory. First, chunk the word up into syllables. For example, the word psychiatrist would be split into 4 parts as psy-chi-a-trist. Then you first pronounce the individual letters in the first syllable of psychiatrist, the letters P-S-Y. Then say the whole syllable, psy. Next, spell out the second syllable, C-H-I. Then pronounce the syllable, chi. Next, the third syllable, a. Finally, spell out the fourth set of letters, T-R-I-S-T, and then pronounce it trist. Now visualize the syllables as if they were written on a blackboard in white chalk. Imagine the blackboard is slightly above your eye level. Close your eyes and repeat the individual letters and then the sound of the syllables. Try to see the letters clearly. Now create another strong visual memory by writing the word out in bold letters or write over the word several times in different colors. Create a physical memory by writing the word several times on paper or in large movements in the air or with a fiber tip or fountain pen whose texture you enjoy using. Complete the auditory memory by saying and spelling the word out loud as a complete word. You can use this method of learning words for both English words and for words of a foreign language. The most important thing is to make an effort to see, feel, and hear the word exactly as it is spelled and exactly as it sounds. The more often you do this, the better a speller you will become, and the easier it becomes to learn more and more words faster and with great accuracy. The seventh learning technique is to try a review concert with new material. You can make what you are learning more memorable by using music as you learn. Music helps you to relax, and you learn more easily when you relax. Music also stimulates the emotional part of your brain, where an important element of your long-term memory is situated. Music makes sure that your whole brain is involved in the learning. To oversimplify it, your right hemisphere works on the music and your left hemisphere deals with the words. Music is the universal language of mankind because it creates moods and feelings and pictures without the need for words. It can be an even more direct form of communication than the language. A simple way you can use music is to play a recording that you find appealing as you review what you want to remember. Certain styles of music, especially gentle classical music or Baroque music, are particularly effective for learning. You can review what you are learning by simply reading a summary out loud as you listen to the music. Another way to do this is to record a summary of what you want to memorize on an audio cassette and listen to it and your music together. The aim of playing music while reviewing the material is to create what is called a review concert. You sit back quietly, relax, and listen to the music. You will be surprised at how it brings back clear memories of what you've learned, like a mental movie. This technique is used very successfully in language learning courses as well. You've had experience with the concept of review concerts whenever you hear a song that was playing during an important part of your life. The song will bring back all kinds of thoughts, images, and emotions that you recorded at the same time. This works equally well for learning new subjects today. The eighth technique is for you to organize the material meaningfully. Make it memorable by organizing or sorting what you are learning into groups or categories that relate to each other. Each group of new ideas or information should contain items that have some similarity to each other. Then, you label each group of words or concepts with a keyword that in some way expresses the similarity or relationship between the items. Once you have each group with its title or label, you need only memorize the key words. Later, when you recall the key words, you will find that you will also remember all the items that made up the group. For example, if I say to you the words living room or kitchen, you will be able to instantly recall all the furniture and details of those rooms in your home. Learning or memory maps are a particularly effective way to organize material meaningfully so that you can recall it quickly by simply flipping the picture into your mind. A concise, organized, meaningful, and visual summary creates a memorable impression of what you are learning. The ninth technique for accelerated learning is called memory flashing. This method is extremely powerful and simple as well. First, you take your notes on a learning map or in the form of a brief list of key points. Second, you study them carefully for 1 or 2 minutes. Third, you then set your notes aside and redraw or rewrite them from memory, creating a second set of notes. Fourth, you now compare the 2 learning maps or sets of notes, the original and the one you just made. You will immediately see anything that you missed. Fifth, you now make a third set of notes or a third learning map and again compare your new set of notes or learning map with the original. When the original and your new set of notes are finally the same, you will have created a very strong memory for your notes. In many cases, because your learning map is itself a way of concentrating a lot of information into a few brief notes, you may be able to record a whole book or program in one easily remembered form. The key words will trigger your memory for lots of detail. A great way to demonstrate the power of this technique to yourself is to create a learning map with all the different learning techniques branching out from a central core. In no time at all, you can memorize all the different ways to memorize. The 10th learning technique consists of the use of flashcards. Some subjects lend themselves to writing on index cards like scientific formula or foreign words. You can then use these index cards in your spare time for review and personal testing. Alternately, you could carry a portable notebook and jot down key facts for regular review. This is one of the best techniques for learning that you'll ever find. The 11th technique consists of creating flash maps. Flash maps are larger versions of flashcards. The way you do this is create a ring binder for all your learning maps with dividers between the subjects. You then file a copy of all your learning maps in this binder. As a result, in one single document, you will have a portable, personal reference book on your whole area of study. You can keep an entire 1, 2, or 3-year learning program in this form. Remember, repetition and review of all kinds are the keys to long-term memorization. The 12th learning technique is for you to create a mnemonic. This is just a fancy name for a memory aid. It's an acronym or a word made up from the first letters of the key points of what you're trying to remember. Almost every government agency is called by a set of initials, whether it is NASA, standing for National Aeronautical Space Agency, or the IRS, standing for the Internal Revenue Service, or the DEA, standing for the Drug Enforcement Agency. The best mnemonics are those containing 3, 5, 7, or 9 letters. But it doesn't really matter how many you use. You can pick a word like power or success. and then create statements that summarize what you are learning, the first word of each of which begins with one of those letters. A friend of mine, for example, summarizes his ideas for success in the word ACE. He builds an entire talk around the three letters. A stands for attitude, C stands for commitment, and E stands for excellence. I once did an entire program for the Prudential Assurance Company of America built around the word prudential, with each letter standing for a key part of their business. It was very effective. The 13th technique is to let the information sink in overnight, as I mentioned earlier. If you review your notes on a subject for a few moments before getting ready for bed, you will learn it far more rapidly. Your brain appears to use sleep as a time to file away information. Your dreams help you to connect new information to what you already know. The 14th memory technique is both simple and extremely useful. It is to number the points, ideas, or actions you need to remember so that you will automatically know if you have forgotten one of them. For example, there are 6 stages of learning. Number 1 is preparing to learn. Number 2 is getting the facts. Number 3 is exploring the subject. Number 4 is memorizing the material. Number 5 is showing you know, and number 6 is reviewing the learning process. You must get into the habit of applying all 6 in order to every learning experience until it becomes automatic. The more you do it, the better a learner you become. The better a learner you become, the faster you take in information, and the longer you remember. The 15th technique is called whole learning. This is used when you need to memorize a lot of material by heart, perhaps a poem or a play. The method is simple. Don't try to learn it bit by bit or line by line. Instead, learn it as a whole. First, read all the way through completely, making sure you understand it. Go back over those parts that were difficult to understand and make sure that you have them clear in your mind. You won't be able to remember what you don't understand. Second, reread it again quickly and again. Third, reread it again, this time aloud, but concentrate on hearing the words in your mind. Fourth, reread it again aloud, and this time with as many visual pictures or images as you can produce. Imagine everything that you are learning as clearly as possible. Number 5, reread it again aloud and add actions or movements as far as is appropriate. Number 6, repeat this whole pattern again from stage 1 to stage 5. This seems like a lot of repetition, but it's been proven that this whole learning approach is at least 50% faster than trying to learn something one part at a time. The reason why is clear. This method of learning is multisensory. It starts with a big picture and gradually activates every sense in the process of learning. To demonstrate this to yourself, take a poem or a passage from a play or from Shakespeare and decide to commit it to memory by reading it and then by going over and over it while you say it aloud, visualize the material, and walk around dramatically as you recite it. You will be astonished at how fast you'll memorize it. The 16th technique of memorization is overlearning. If you really want to remember something, you should aim to overlearn it. For a really crucial piece of information or for an important subject, you should not only review it until you know it by heart, but you should even continue to learn it beyond that point. Experience tells you that a learning activity like riding a bicycle, which you do over and over again, long after you've learned how to do it properly, is never forgotten. You repeat the actions often enough to acquire the skill as a lifelong memory. This works with languages as well as with virtually any other subject. And finally, the 17th learning technique is to compress lots of information into an easily recalled format by chunking it down and then labeling it with key words. This involves 3 steps. First, make your notes in the form of a learning map. Second, title each learning map with a single word. Third, invent a mnemonic which enables you to remember all the title words. Review your learning maps over and over again as they relate to the single title word. In time, you'll be able to remember not only the learning map, but the entire subject by simply triggering the word that refers to the entire body of knowledge.